According to C.S. Lewis, we read to know that we are not alone. Welcome to Book Club.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. It's great to see you guys.
You too.
What?
Oh.
How's it going, Danielle?
Good. Running, but good.
That's awesome. I love how you guys are squeezing in time for this while your kids are busy.
Yep. Well, it's not my kids. I'm just sitting like a creep outside a minor hockey rink.
You guys know this is being recorded and going on YouTube, right?
Uh-oh.
This is when we're officially starting. All that other stuff you can cut out.
You bet. Everything else. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Chocolate bar out of your teeth.
Yeah, that's right. Here we go. So thank you guys again for coming. It's wonderful that you all could. I'm going to give a shout out to Danielle down there. She's also the Mind Body Mommy. And I had entered a draw on her blog page and I won. And this was just one of the items that I got in the prize and I love it. So I got a great chai tea. Carly is also a dear friend. I've actually lived with Carly before, and Ashley is another dear friend who I work with and run with, and Danielle is a dear friend as well. I should add that. And
yes,
so all people I love. I'm gonna put a link to Danielle's blog down in the description below, so make sure you check out her blog. She has wonderful health related information. Okay,
thanks for the shout out, Carlin.
You're welcome. So we read the book chosen by our book club, All Is Not Forgotten by Wendy Walker. And it begins in the small affluent town of Fairview, Connecticut, where everything seems picture perfect until one night when young Jenny Kramer is attacked at a local party. In the hours immediately thereafter, she is given a controversial drug to medically erase her memory of the violent assault. But in the weeks and months that follow, as she heals from her physical wounds and with no factual recall of the attack, Jenny wrestles with her raging emotional memory. Her father, Tom, becomes obsessed with his inability to find her attacker and seek justice, while her mother, Charlotte, struggles to pretend that this horrific event has not touched her carefully constructed world. As Tom and Charlotte seek help for their doctor, the fault lines within their marriage and their close-knit community emerge from the shadows where they have been hidden for years, and the restless quest to find the monster who invaded their town, or perhaps lives among them, drives this psychological thriller to a shocking and unexpected conclusion. So it was a crazy book. Let's just start with question 1. What is this book actually about? I mean, that's a tough one.
Nobody's perfect. Everyone's got their issues. And
big issues.
Well, yeah. And obviously, and this is one of the other questions, but I feel like this is exaggerated in a sense, but I think it reflects the real world. Like, from the outside in, someone might look like they have a perfect marriage, but you never know what's going on. Like, everybody is flawed, and even people who you think might have it together might have a background of trauma, or like everyone's got stuff going on and you don't know what that really is. I think that's part of what the book is about.
Yeah, there's so many lies. I had just put down lies, like all the different intentions, even a sick psychiatrist, or like him, something about him just bothers me. And it's underlying messages of values. Like, what do you value? Do you act with integrity? And then underneath all of that, with lies and deceit and integrity, in recovery. Like, at the end of the book, here it is, all these people he's cured, but in the meantime, you've destroyed them at the same time. And then also, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. And your own version of how to manipulate their outcomes and stuff. And it just kind of makes you think back either of people you've talked to or people you know or struggles they've had, and like hearing the diagnosis has come forth. It's like, okay, respected professionals, but how manipulated that outcome can be.
Yeah.
Again, we all bring our history with us to everything we do, and we all do things for a reason, is kind of how I feel it. Like we're doing it to get and in the book especially, like they're doing it to get their needs met. And when they kind of explain why they're doing it, I can have a little bit of understanding as to why, but I don't like it, especially the psychiatrist. But
to me, it was kind of like enlightening. Well, not enlightening, but
yes,
professionals and medical professionals, it kind of came home with like, even at your core, and how professional, and how at the start of the book he was so almost like type A and following the rules, and then how survival of loved ones or family members kicks in, and that can skew so much. So even if you know somebody who is straight-laced or whatever, trauma happens, or they get scared, or a life is threatened, or their loved ones are in a situation, and their reactions to everyday life can be really bizarre.
Yes. And I'm adding to that, and what I was trying to say before and forgot, is we bring our histories with us, like to our jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so every doctor that you meet, every teacher that you meet, you have your history and you have your values that you're bringing with that. And that affects how you practice as a doctor, or how you teach, or how you are a dental assistant or hygienist. Like all of those things, you are different at your job because of who you are at your core and your history. And we're all human, and we're all messed up. Maybe not as bad as some of those people, but we're all messed up in some way or another, right?
What did you think, Ashley?
Yeah, I thought it was a lot about like memory science. Like I liked the science kind of aspects of it and the psychological part of it, but like you said, it was a lot about like deceit and lies, and how far will you go to protect people, and a lot about like loss of innocence. And yeah, it was quite the book, actually. It had me going in all different directions of thinking who it was, and then thinking, oh, this is in the middle. I was kind of like, this is getting a little boring, and then something would happen and I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm right back in it.
And then through all of those things, it was woven still with a who did it kind of question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And honestly, because I did the audio book on my commutes to and from work, the narrator and the who was the psychiatrist, his voice even was driving me bonkers. I'm like, oh my God. And I even sped it, and I kept thinking back in my head, how would I be reading this to myself? Like, would his voice be the same as I'm hearing it? But honestly, like those long parts, I can empathize with you guys, because even though it was audiobook, I was like, let's 2 times this guy's pace. Like, pick it up, buddy. Like you're lagging here. Let's get going.
Yeah, the beginning of the book was like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe I'm reading this right now. And then, kind of a stall. And then at the end, I was like, oh, and now it's over.
Yeah, it ended very abruptly.
Good. Yeah,
in a way.
Let's go on to question 2. So it's kind of already led there. What do you think about the narrator or the psychiatrist? So, the voice on the audiobook, but what about who he is? Like,
super creepy.
Very creepy.
I don't think it actually told us that he was the psychiatrist till like the 6th or 7th chapter. So then you were like, who is this person? Like, is this a random dad? Or like, you didn't know who he was. So then he was super even more creepy, because you were like, what is this? But,
well, and part of me wondered if he was like the person who did it. before I knew he
me
was a
too. I wondered if
psychiatrist.
he was the rapist.
Yeah, super creepy. I hated as soon as he started. Well, from the beginning, I had said to Ashley, we were out walking one day, I was like, I think that it's the psychiatrist. And then obviously it wasn't. But he was super creepy from the beginning. But then I hated him as soon as he started displaying the questionable integrity and hiding his son's behavior. But then I think of it from his perspective, because I was like, okay, I hate this. It grinds me wrong. But what if that was my kid?
Well, and once I knew what happened at the end, I hated those actions less, because he kept saying, I knew it wasn't him. I knew it wasn't him in a way that my wife doesn't know. And I was like, oh, he's just being this cocky psychiatrist. How do you know it's not him? And so that made me really mad. But then when I found out why he knew it wasn't his son, then I was like, okay, well, I can sort of see you did truly know.
The opposite reaction. It was so funny. I was like, okay, this is, and I was like, oh yeah, you know what? You think that you have everything together, and then that happens, and it's a wake-up call. I think even to him, like, he was surprised, because he always thought his wife was the one who was so over worrying and everything. And I was kind of surprised with him, and almost I like felt for him in a way where I was like, yeah, like, get out of your book, buddy. Like, when your loved ones are in trouble, you will walk through fire for them as well. So I actually didn't hate him in that moment of doing that. And the things that he was hiding, I was like, oh, you're going to pay the price, because I'm a huge believer in karma. And I was happy that it didn't, interfere with the process, or, he didn't cover up his son's crime and make sure that he didn't pay the price for it. But I was like, yeah, maybe moving forward, he will treat his patients or his practice a little bit differently like that, and not be so closed book and off without it, and have a little more empathy for that side of life too.
Yeah.
That's why I like these, because it's we get a different person's perspective on the book.
Mm-hmm.
I think, well, one of our words we like to use, Carly, but I think we could classify him as reckless.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, he's reckless.
I also, in his little blurb at the end where he was like, hate me if you must, like all that kind of stuff. But then he said, like, every morning I wake up and look in the mirror and I don't have a problem with myself whatsoever. I thought that was like a little bit, I was like, little cocky, like a little arrogant, I guess, maybe on his part. And I was like,
Well, and from the very beginning, like you said, we didn't know that he was the psychiatrist. And then from the very beginning, and then even when we went on before all the stuff with his son, I just thought he's so arrogant and cocky, exactly like you said. And he's so defensive. Like anything that he thinks someone might not agree, he just was like automatically defending and coming up with reasons and excuses, it felt like to me, why he was saying what he was saying. And that just carried for me through the whole book overall. And I just couldn't stand the guy.
I also thought like it was maybe a bit unrealistic in a sense that like a teenage girl who's been raped, whose family is trying to hide it, would probably not have would not go to a psychologist who has a kid in her school. But that's
and even a man, like his gender kind of bothered me. Like, this is a 15-year-old girl who has been brutally assaulted by a mystery man, and you want to cure her as a man? I don't know. I didn't totally buy that aspect either.
I think it's hard because if it's a small town, as they say it is, there's probably not a lot of choices. So they're going to take what they can get. And I just find that when people are feeling desperate, whether they're like desperately ill or desperately depressed, or they'll reach out to whoever is the expert, and they don't think about all those little things right at the beginning. So they'll be like, oh, here's a doctor that is supposed to know about this. I'm going to go there because I just need this to be fixed. And they don't necessarily think of those kinds of things. And I think that's sort of realistic to life. But I also see what you're saying. And because I couldn't stand the guy. So I can't imagine being a parent and like going to your like intake interview or whatever to learn what he's going to do with your kid. And I'd be like, nope, I don't like you.
Exactly.
You're so right, Danielle. In a state of trauma, all that other sensory stuff probably goes away, and it's just like, oh, they're offering help. I'm taking it.
And he's supposed to like know about this. What was it called? The
Memory
eraser or whatever.
What did he call it?
Yeah, memory eraser or reverser or something. Yeah.
Well, and whatever. I just felt like he didn't really have a name for it. He just always called it like the procedure or whatever it was called. Something. Anyway.
Doesn't it make you wonder if in like real life, especially in military situations and stuff, if this happens and how often some version of this does happen? Like I was like, oh yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's kind of like the date rape drug after the fact. Oh. So question 3, I thought was like the most provocative question there. How far should parents go to protect their children?
Tough one.
I don't know if you could ever really answer it until you're in it, right? We all have like our little morals that we might say, oh, well, I wouldn't ever do this, but you never really know until you're in it, right? But I guess as much as you have to do, right?
Well, and I would like to think I would take a bullet for my child, but I also, in not so dire situations, like I believe it's important my kids need to learn consequences. Like if you say something rude to a kid at school, then you have to accept the consequences of what happened to that. Like you've made a choice and you need to deal with it. So I would support them, but still want them to be consequenced. But in a traumatic situation, I might react differently. It's like you said, it's hard to say until you know that you're in it. When I was listening to the book, I thought that it was disgusting. But again, can be empathetic because I don't know what it's like.
I would hope.
Oh, you go ahead.
I would hope that in life and the way that we choose to raise our kids is like, we got your back, but you best not lie to us, because you make us look like a fool, you're in trouble. And like to the easiest degree or to the biggest degree, obviously at 7 and 9, they're not big crime threats yet, but just in the simplest things, I mean, and bringing it back to both you, Carlin and Ashley, at school, I say we have our rules at home, but your classroom, your teachers are boss. Like you follow those rules, you respect those rules. If you choose to act outside of them, there will be discussions and consequences, and that open discussion. Same thing goes, I think, with anything. They'll learn from their mistakes more than their praises. But you hurt my kid, I'm coming after you.
Okay, and so that's where I totally connect with you, Carly, because like I connected with Tom this entire book. I was just like, I know if I came and someone in my family was brutally attacked, we are hunting that attacker down and they are going to pay. I'm not saying that I would do anything illegal, but they would go through the judicial system and we would definitely make sure that we caught them.
I agree on that too.
And reminding the investigators, your job ain't over yet. You're going. Like, this is not back burner business. Like, get your shit together. Let's go. I actually had no problem with Tom. I was just like, find that guy, make him pay. Not a problem. And then when they kept on trying to slough off all these different clues, no. If I was the parent, you look at that clue, you take that seriously. And I don't care if it's the psychiatrist's son. You better track him down and make him pay, even if he's innocent. Oh, maybe not that, but.
Or if he's the guy who's running for council or. Don't just take it easy because you're afraid of the PR nightmare. Like, this is my kid you're talking about.
Now,
Yeah.
flipping it around, if that was my son getting accused of a sexual assault, I mean, small towns again, we know what happens. Even a false allegation is treated real and it never comes around. And so now if I'm looking at from the son's perspective, it's like, you do not mess with my son in that regard either. Your allegation better have substantial reasons for it.
And he did know that it wasn't his son. Like, he didn't just believe it because it was his son. Like, he had other information that we didn't have at the time, that he knew it wasn't him. So I think, and that's where I was more empathetic, that I could be like, yeah, I can see why you wanted to keep him out of this, because a false allegation is going to be with him for life, and you truly know that it wasn't him. It's not just because it's your son that you're defending him, right? That made a big difference to me.
Well, and in his profession, let's be honest, he can't discuss any of that at home. He can't let people know how he knows. You know, there's so much of that backstory too, that I feel like as a professional, had I known that he, you know, if he was my doctor, had I known that he was skewing things or withholding, I'd be so upset. But on that end of things, I just kept thinking, like, there's not a lot of other things that he could do if he was staying within his profession, right? And yeah, let's not do this, but exactly, that innocence would be gone forever from their son, and how the rest of his life was guided, or the path he went down would have been determined to some extent then. So I don't know, it's tricky because he does come off as a scumbag, but he's also a parent. I don't know.
Well, and I'm so much of a rule follower, like, and I'm so afraid of, like, if I do something that's even a little bit shady, how is that going to affect my ability to do my job down the road? Like, I am so strict on myself. So that's why I'm like, parts of me are like, there's no way I would ever do that. But then when I think of my babies, it's like, yeah, I can understand why he did. Like, it's just because I agree, he comes off as a scumbag, but then I'm like, so I like to think I wouldn't be like that, but like you said, until you're in it, you don't know.
All right.
I also think I also think Bob Sullivan was a scumbag in the book too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Deserved what he got. Oh wait, no, he died. Wait, I don't know if he deserved a fatal ending, but
he was
they played him very, very well as like the rich car salesman that climbed his way to the top, screwing all the cute young girls and could do whatever you want, right? Like, they had that character solidly nailed down, and whether it be fair or not, I enjoyed the telling of that character. I didn't like the character, I didn't like him, but I was like, oh yeah, you're hitting this one hard. Like,
ultimately, the psychiatrist, ultimately the psychiatrist was Bob Sullivan's murderer. Like, he caused Bob his murder. Yeah, absolutely.
And I definitely thought he did it for a little while. I was like, oh yeah, it was him, and then all of a sudden it wasn't him.
Mm-hmm.
What were you gonna say, Danielle?
I forget already.
All right, so what did you guys think of the ending?
It was good, I guess, but I was like, really? Of all the characters that we spent all this time listening to, this is how it's gonna end? Like, I thought, oh, okay, well, I don't know. I thought it would have been more interesting if the psychiatrist was a killer, or I don't know, the son or something, but I guess it was okay. It was just kind of abrupt.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I found myself like getting mad in the beginning and in part of the lull in the end, where I hope I didn't just kill my battery. Oh crap. Where he was like, he seemed to like be meandering and like telling all of these things that had nothing to do with the story. And I was like, why are you talking about your experience at Summers? Like, you're annoying. So in a way, and the guy, whatever his name was, the guy who did the raping.
Yeah, first.
Shelby
No.
or Glenn.
Glenn.
Yeah.
Glenn.
Yeah. Like, why are you even telling us about him? Like, this has nothing to do with the story. And so I was getting annoyed. So in the end, now that we like know what we know, I'm like less annoyed that he shared all that information. So I was thankful that it kind of tied it all up in the end. So that was good. But I agree that it was abrupt after
I
all
almost
of
felt
that
like
meandering.
with that, like circling back, I was like, oh, it's grade 8 creative writing, and your teacher's saying, I don't know where you're going. Let's circle back to an ending here and pick something up. Like, I don't know if the writing was that strong at that point, or like why that time was picked for the ending, and then it's like, oh, we got to grab something that that would be okay. Like, I don't know.
Cut some of the crap from the middle. Yeah. I do have to run. I wanted to make a quick comment because at the end of the audiobook, there was an interview with the author.
Okay.
And did you listen to that, Carly?
I didn't.
No, I didn't get through it yet.
They, like, one of the questions they ask is, was this a difficult book for you to write? And because it's like difficult to read at times. And she said, the author said, no, I put myself in the position of the psychiatrist. And when I was in that mindset, none of it was difficult to write at all. And I thought that was a very interesting answer, and made me wonder about the author as a person. So while we were talking about grade 8 creative writing, it then led me to think of that, where I was like, a strange woman.
Well, thank you so much for coming, Danielle. That was awesome.
Thanks for
Nice to
inviting
see your
me.
beautiful face.
Aw, thanks, you guys too. Let me know what the next book is, and I'd love to join again.
That sounds awesome. Will do.
Okay, take care, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.
So I thought the ending was horrible. I absolutely hated that he was like, and the family lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
How does Tom forgive his wife after all of that? How does like, you don't just live happily ever after it.
I liked the relationship between Jenny and the PTSD soldier guy. And I was like, that's a cool connection that they had together. And I was glad that the author didn't turn it into a sexual relationship and stuff, that there could be that support between them. But I was a little confused too at the end. And, you know, like the whole thing was about trauma and dealing with it. And like you said, Carlin, like, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's good. Like, no problem here. Like, what?
Yeah, and it was kind of annoying that it was the character we knew the least about.
Yeah.
That ended up doing it. So we've got all these, you know, all this information about all these characters. In the end, it didn't really matter. But yeah, the PTSD guy, Sean or whatever his name was, seemed to be the one that came out the least scathed from the interaction with the psychiatrist, which, I mean, he still had PTSD, but yeah, like trauma, like talk about, I don't know if he fixed any trauma. I think he caused more trauma than he actually probably fixed, that guy. But I also really didn't like the mom at the start. But then, once we learned a little bit more about her, I guess I was a little more empathetic or something. But yeah, I really didn't like her at the start when she was kind of just like,
give her the drugs.
Like it was all about appearances and nothing about like her daughter's feelings. But yeah, it was hard to like a lot of the characters for a while. It was kind of like, whose side am I on? I don't know whose side I'm on here. And it also paralleled to like the book we read before. I kind of was like comparing the psychiatrist and
Christy Tate,
like the AA person, like that kept telling them to do all these weird things, right?
Right.
And I was just like, these people are so reckless, and they're like the ones calling the shots in both the books. But
And is therapy really like that? Or are therapists just puppet masters? Like,
I know.
yeah.
It makes you think, hey, and like his version of everything being wonderful after, I'm like, they're just gonna have to go to another psychiatrist. Like, it ain't good.
And please do go to another
Yes.
psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had made the same note. Healing, but at what expense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Or even if it was healing, like he thought his job was done, but clearly there's still work to do.
Yeah, and not only did the poor girl get raped, but she also like had the attempted suicide, like lots of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was hard to read as well. All right, question 5. Are thrillers far-fetched by nature?
Yeah, or else they wouldn't be very thrilling. Normal life is kind of boring. For the
So this
it's a
was
production, right? In the end, but
yeah. This was the very first thriller I've ever read. I've watched them on movies and stuff like that, but I've avoided them in book. And I don't think I would choose to read another one unless it was in book club. My first, and well, you never know. I'll read it as part of book club. I can get through it, but it was hard. Like,
honestly, after Carlin, I was like, God, I hope she chooses one of her old Harlequins to follow
I
this
know. I'll take
I'm ready
it.
for it.
I need a smut romance after this, because my goodness, that was dark.
Yeah.
I like murder mystery kind of ones, but I don't like the more like the rape kind of, that kind of dark kind of thing, but I do like, finding out who a murderer is or something.
Yes.
But this one was a bit graphic. Like I said, like for a lot of people it would be like you need to have a trigger warning before you read this book, because if you've had any,
Yes.
it could be very triggering.
I think so too. I think it definitely needed a trigger warning.
Yeah, it was really graphic.
I don't know, like, honestly, I just keep going back to, like, I mean, far be it from me to judge an author's ability or whatever, but as somebody, I just kept thinking, like, okay, she's gonna throw in another something to try and get you to go, and you did, and I was like, okay, and then maybe it was just the ending that bothered me so much, because I was like, what was that all for? Like, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Any final thoughts about the book, or?
Well, I don't think I can say that I didn't like it, because I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
So like it was intriguing. It was just the subject matter was, like dark, right? So it was different.
Yeah. I am glad I read it, because it's good to step out of my comfort zone. And it was not my favorite book, but that's okay. Like you said, it was easy to read. And once I started it, I finished it pretty quickly. And the last half went definitely faster than the first half, but I don't regret reading it.
I finished mine quicker because I sped up his, like, I learned that there's like this little 1 times 1.5 times. I was up to 2. Sometimes you sound like a freaking chickmunk, but
That's funny. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for coming. And we'll have to do a book club again soon. We'll post it in the Lifelong Learning Book Club.
Yes, let us know. And at hockey practice tonight, I was like, I gotta go to my vehicle, do this book club. And I actually had 2 of the moms there like, what? That's so cool. So I might have to add them to the book club.
Absolutely. Anyone is welcome to join. That would be awesome.
Perfect.
Are you thinking we'll do a poll again?
I think that would be great.
So if anybody has any suggestions for books, we could post on there and then do a little poll or something.
I think that's
I honestly love that you do the poll and that I don't have to contribute or think of what. And I love that it's just a random pick for me to find the audiobook. Or I actually legitimately like reading, but it seems like life lets me listen more than read these days. So that's totally cool too. But yeah, because I probably wouldn't have ever picked this book before. So
Mhm.
it was good to have other people guide me in that way.
Absolutely.